Hello and welcome to the All Blacks versus the British and Irish Lions Test 2 live reaction. The All Blacks have just lost their first game in Wellington for the past 14 years. And so they've been talking about Fortress Eden Park, but hey, Fortress Wellington has fallen. The score was 21-24. And joining me this evening, I have Russ from the More Over podcast. How are you doing? You're not quite bouncing.
No, not bouncing, but I've got a very, very big smile on my face. The adrenaline is certainly pumping, and that last sort of 5 or 6 minutes was a bit of a blur at the moment. To be honest, I'm absolutely chuffed to bits.
And so, a man who hopefully it isn't a blur for and can give us some proper insight is Steve from the Cornflakes crib down in Invercargill. How are you doing, sir?
I'm great. You know, I started writing notes about this game as I started, things I wanted to talk about and that sort of thing. But I got about, I don't know, half an hour in, I was just too absorbed. I was too absorbed in the game to really notice what was happening to take any notes. And a great game, a really exciting game. It's just a shame that it wasn't, 15 on 15. That's sort of, but that things happen, and it's a great game rugby. That's all I can say.
So unfortunately, you seem to be crackling a little bit there. I'm not necessarily got the best connection. So I don't know if you can quickly just wiggle your headphones or something. So quick précis of the game. So early on, the Irons got the upper hand, but didn't get the points for the first 10 minutes. Then the All Blacks went into the Lions half and came away with 3 points from a penalty. And that tended to be the story from then on in, that the All Blacks ratcheted up in 3 points as they kept possession, and the Lions gave away penalties, especially in that second half where they only had 27% possession at 1 point. So we just saw the blah, 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 blah. We just saw the All Blacks going, commencing up. Barrett missed a few, which obviously proved pivotal in the end. And the Lions came away with the only 2 tries of the game. The other big talking point, obviously, within that is going to be the red card. But guys, for the second time running, we have had the sides flip. Last week, we talked about how the Lions were going to be dominant up front, and that the All Blacks would spin it wide, and they flipped the books, and the All Blacks kept it tight, and the Lions tried to spin it wide. This week, one of the things we've been saying all tour is that the Lions will increment in threes. Again, but can we hold the Lions? Can we hold the All Blacks to not too many tries? And it's flipped again. The All Blacks went up in threes, but the Lions scored the tries. Keeping you all exciting? Did you see that coming?
No, I didn't. And one thing that really stood out for me for the Lions was about the physicality. I think the up in threes thing that the All Blacks played last week. I think we really stood up to them, and for me, all the talk of Alan Wynne and Maro Itoje in the second row, I thought both of them were absolutely monumental. I think Maro knocked on in the first 5 minutes, and I was just thinking, everyone's going to be calling for Maro to be dropped next week because he made a knock on. So, excuse me, I thought the Lions got their game plan spot on, but I think we'll come on to the contentious thing in a minute.
I think the difference in style, really, main point was the All Blacks changed up how they played just because of the red card sort of thing, which I'm sure we'll talk about that more later. But ever since that happened, I think the change of game plan was take whatever points you can, and focus on defence. What did surprise me a little bit is how they went straight away for taking off Kaino and bringing Laumape on. But it was interesting to see how Laumape played, though, and I hope I'm not crackling anymore.
You are crackling a little bit, but but we'll have to live with that. So let's talk about the red card, because that was definitely a game changer there. The first red card that the All Blacks have had since Colin Meads in the Great Pine Tree. It's been a very long time. So to me, Anthony Watson was dropping obviously under the tackle of Naholo. In comes Sonny Bill Williams. And instead of wrapping his arm around Naholo, which is what he should have done, he drops the arm in, and therefore there's no arms, and it's a shoulder to the face. As soon as I saw the first replay, it was immediate red. I mean, Steve, any complaints from New Zealand, or do you think it was quite right?
No, most of that, like that thing by itself is, yeah, okay, that's fine. No worries about there. But I just don't understand the referees in this whole series. Just some things being yellows or reds, and other things not even granting a penalty. We've seen it over the whole series, right from the get-go to the end. That's the thing that I don't really understand with the refs. But that tackle, it could have been a penalty, it could have been a yellow, it could have been a red. It depends on the referee, because like we talked about a million times over, there's so much opinion about what the referees determined to be something. But, it was fair enough to be red. No complaints whatsoever. And, that's Sonny Bill for you. League background, that's how he plays. He lives by the sword and he dies by it too, and probably won't see him for quite some time, I'd imagine.
I don't agree that it's the referee. For me, that is a red card all day, every day. He made absolutely no attempt to tackle Anthony Watson, and he knew exactly what he was doing. The fact that Watson was possibly he was on his way down to a certain extent, kind of ducking under the tackle, but he didn't do anything else but run into him with a shoulder. So by the letter of the law, that's just a red card. There's no escaping that as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely, yeah. That was at the very least, if Watson had stayed upright, it would have been a yellow for the shoulder charge into the body. It was a card all day long, and the fact that it hit the head rather than the body meant that it was red for me. So I don't think there was any complaints really for that. You're absolutely right. It is a league background thing, seeing that shoulder go in. And so I noticed someone say that he has been red carded before for the Chiefs back in 2015, but I can't remember that incident. But I'm assuming it was probably something along the same sort of lines, because he has been known to do that. Anyone going to ask how Watson passed that HIA as well is a comment on there. And
agreed.
Yep, there is. HIAs to me have been treated very badly by the Lions on this tour, and I think the All Blacks have shown you how it's done. Ben Smith gets a head injury. It's not his first of the season, and the first thing they say is, "We don't care about the return to play protocols. He ain't playing for the rest of the series." And that to me is very good. I'm not saying that New Zealand always gets it right, but they have done it in that case. Whereas Biggar, for example, has had 3 HIAs in 4 games whilst he's been here, failing 1, passing 2. That one tonight, he's taken a bash to the head. Now, to be fair, he got up, and there was no sign of any concussion from the way he was standing. Whereas I saw Sexton, to me, looks a bit wobbly later on in that second half, and I was thinking he shouldn't be on that pitch. Now, whether that was just exhaustion or whether that was because he'd taken a knock somewhere, I don't know. But yeah, I don't think HIAs have been treated very well in this. But I'd rather talk about the positives of this game, because it was a cracker of a match. And yeah, I think the physicality piece is a piece I want to come back to. Whilst we did see Mario Itoje knock on in that first phase, to me, the stage was set there with the Lions getting over the gain line, which they hadn't done last week, and actually getting some front foot ball.
Yeah, very much so. They set this all out earlier, and you can, any game that goes the first sort of 18, 19 minutes and it's still 0-0. It was a bit of a surprise to me, I must admit. But like I've already mentioned, the physicality of the Lions, the first up tackles, they didn't allow the All Blacks to get their offload game going, and that made a massive difference to the amount of gain line breaks and the amount of times that the All Blacks went forward, because the Lions just stopped them at every opportunity. So I was really impressed with that. They've obviously been working hard on that this week.
Yeah, it was a pretty big battle between those guys. It was what we expected, really. The changes, we saw that the Lions are going to go for that different sort of approach, the big approach, try and rectify what they did last week, or what they didn't do last week, more like it. And really, it played perfectly in. And the game plan worked, didn't it? They got what they wanted. I think Itoje definitely made a big difference in the second row. Just his play style, his aggression, the way he moves, he can get around the field and make big hits, do the big man job, and still be mobile. That's the word I'm looking for, around the field. So big difference for him. And it worked a treat. It can sell the difference between 2 weeks is coming true for them.
It is, and it was like that up until the red card. I mean, I did say at one point, I think we had like 5 kicks in the first 2 minutes. It was a wet day. There was plenty of kicking going on. And it was good rugby up until the red card from both sides. And then for some reason, the Lions stopped playing and started giving away penalties all of a sudden. And I think that showed a lack of leadership and a lack of composure from the Lions there, that when they went this man up, that they somehow panicked, for a better word.
Yeah, they lost the plot when they received that yellow card as well, I reckon. It was 14 on 14. They around the breakdown, they just completely lost it. They had gaps everywhere. It just seemed to all completely break down for them, and they were giving away penalties left, right, and centre. And it kind of was concerning when you look at it. And the Lions should be winning that game pretty well, given the circumstances, but just seemed to lose their heads a bit. Luckily for them, they got it back though at the end when it really mattered. But boy, they could have easily completely lost their marbles there in that game.
Yeah, they seem to not know how to approach the situation. So with the red card coming, and then getting into half time 9-9. Okay, let's wear them down. Let's keep the ball. Let's make them tackle. Let's find the holes and expose it that way. That first 15 minutes of the second half, they completely lost the plot, as you say. I believe there was a lack of leadership there. Getting hold of those players. Vunipola giving away 4 penalties. Itoje give away a few penalties as well. There was lots of offside. I mean, if Barrett had his kicking boots on, let's be frank about it. If Barrett had been able to kick, the All Blacks would have been out of sight, because our discipline was an absolute joke at times. It reminded me of Lancaster's England at one point, which I saw somebody else tweet, and actually I thought, yeah, that's a very valid point. But what I was very impressed with is how we managed to wrestle back the initiative. We got through that period without being too far behind, and the finish from Faletau was exceptional. Naholo being off for a HIA. Obviously, the bigger man, Dag, was on the wing. He bumped Dag off very, very simply, and finished it excellently. And from that point, I believe the Lions then absolutely grew in belief from minute to minute to minute, and ultimately the All Blacks couldn't regain parity.
So I must say, there was one comment here, and it's probably questions about the referee around that arm that took out Naholo. To me, in that case, the play, I think it was Sean O'Brien who came in. He was binding on, and I don't think he really could see where whoever was behind the player he was binding onto. So I don't personally, I don't think there was anything wrong, any kind of anything that's wrong. You hit the guy in the head, getting it wrong. But I think it was a rugby incident, unlike Sonny Bill Williams one, which is what has been mentioned in here. To me, you're right, we did lose a plot, and I think to me, Gatland didn't use his bench properly. That's something we left Teo on the bench. Now was left on the bench. The hooker I don't think came on, and also CJ Stander. I mean, that's like 4 players out of your 7-player bench haven't come on, and you've got players on the pitch giving away penalties, and it's losing its structure. I think Gatland didn't handle the situation very well there either.
No, I agree. Especially when we were giving away those penalties, and I felt that incident with Mako and Beauden Barrett, it was waiting to happen. Obviously, the penalty gave away when he was late on the charge down. Although on reflection and looking back, I think it was Retallick who took out Farrell on a kick, and Garces just said play on. Was it Sexton?
No, it was Cody Taylor who took out Farrell.
It was Cody Taylor. So, but it was the same. It was the same incident, in my opinion, and it was at that point where I felt Garces was almost trying to even things up. The Mako yellow card, it was a yellow. I think you can safely say that. People call him for a red. It was never a red card. He was trying to kind of lift him out, although the clear out was well away from where the ball was. So definite yellow. But that could have been alleviated if he'd brought McGrath on a little bit sooner, whilst Mako was giving away those penalties. Garces already had it in his mind that he was watching out for him. So I think that was pretty poor from Gatland.
I think the referee kind of had a few things where he was going inconsistently one side or the other. He kind of did lose control of some kind of decisions a little bit. I don't think it was too bad overall, but like we always talk about, the referee can be, a lot opinionated on things, and overall, I don't think it was that bad. The sort of things could go either way, so I don't find it that bad.
I think he was okay. He was pretty even, wasn't he? I think you could argue he was consistently
inconsistent.
He was even with his inconsistencies, is what you're trying to say here. Yes, he was. I think Cody Taylor and the Vunipola instances were very similar, except Cody Taylor didn't even put his arms up to try and block the ball. He just shoulder barged Farrell. Whereas at least Vunipola made it look like he was trying to get the ball, even if he was never going to get anywhere near it. A better actor, maybe. And I think, that you are looking at an England player. Farrell is one of those key guys of that England team. And I think a couple of those England players, or Mako in particular, got under his skin that his fly half had been taken out. And as a forward, it's his responsibility to show the other team, we ain't going to put up with this. And he went too far, unfortunately, and got himself yellow carded. So he I think should have been pulled early. I actually thought that Itoje was going to get pulled rather than Alwyn Jones, because Alwyn Jones was having a good game and Itoje had just given up a couple of penalties and was getting himself offside. And I also thought that Sexton probably should have been pulled, as I mentioned earlier. He looked wobbly to me at one point. So I was a bit disappointed. So I was a bit worried about him as well. Let's talk about the All Blacks side of things. Before we then go and have a look forward at next weekend. As you said, Steve, the decision to replace Kano with Laumape, that was an interesting one to go 7 up front on a wet night.
Yeah, that was a big thing, because being such a forward-dominated game that it was, and to fill that gap in the back line instead and weaken your forward pack kind of did confuse me a little bit why they went with that. I thought they could have stuck with that in the forward pack and based just a defensive game on the back line and looked to just play kind of what we expect from the Lions, 9-man rugby, and go for the kicks a lot more and just chase and defend. So that was surprising. But the good thing about it was being able to see Laumape play for, I don't know, a good 60-odd, 50 minutes or whatever it was that he was on for. So is he up to test match level? I don't think he played too badly, though. A couple of errors from him, but overall, I think he had a decent game. Always getting over the gain line, breaking first up tackles, dragging players with him. So I think he was all right. But yeah, tactically, I'm sure there was reasons. But on a dry night, you could have said that would have been a way to go. But yeah, in the rain, bit odd.
It might have been, but I think that when looking at one of the things I said about the Lions selections policy was if by picking Sexton and Farrell, to me, you're looking at one of two things. One is a kicking game, or two is getting that ball wide. With Teo and Jonathan Davis, you have two guys in the centres there who can't pass. So your wingers and your fullback might as well not be playing the game from an attacking point of view. So by putting Farrell outside Sexton, he can give that miss pass past Jonathan Davis, or Farrell or Sexton can loop around like he does, and suddenly that opens it up to the wingers. And I think they saw that, they expected, and at times a lot of the Lions did play an expansive game and thought, we need to have the width to cover the whole pitch. And when the Lions scored that try, the first try, it was by taking the All Blacks all the way across. It was a line out, take them all the way across to one side of the pitch, come all the way back to the other side of the pitch, and then eventually a gap was found. So I think it was, to me, I think it was the All Blacks saying, our 7 forwards will man up and make up for Sonny Bill Williams' mess up, but you can't man up in the backs. You have to have the numbers, otherwise there are gaps. And I think that was where, tactically, I think that's where they were coming from. At one point, I think I read it was the offloads in the first half. I think there was 1 offload for the All Blacks and 6 for the Lions. Again, another statistic that we would say should have been the other way around from the kind of expected game styles. So I think it was I think that's what they saw, and I think it actually was how the Lions were trying to play.
Yeah, but they didn't. As much as they tried to play that way, it didn't really happen anyway, did it? I mean, even in 15-15, and when Farrell and Sexton in the first 10-15 minutes were pivoting very well, but the Lions still didn't move the All Blacks around the pitch like I expected them to try and do. And that's when the red card came and they put Numape on, I thought, they could have quite easily sacrificed a back because of the way that the Lions were attacking. Even though that was their game plan, they still weren't executing it to that level. So I think they've missed a trick there, the All Blacks, to be honest.
Kano is quite often the defensive monster who makes up for the other players going away and having some fun and using their handling skills, which is something I would say about Reid. Sam Cane was a Trojan in this game. Obviously, the two locks were also in there. By the way, the Trojan comment is straight from the comments on the side there. They all had big games, but the other stat we were talking about was the tackles. The Lions hit a 92% tackle completion with 122 tackles. New Zealand attempted 65 tackles for 82% success rate. So the Lions nearly made twice as many tackles. They just couldn't get hold of the ball. The turn we talked about, those offloads were in the Lions' favour, but it's the turnovers that I think that really killed. Well, turnovers and discipline were the two things that killed the Lions. New Zealand gave up 6 turnovers. The Lions gave up 10 turnovers in this game. 2 of those were those long kicks that went out the back of the end zone. I'm talking American football now. No. I'm not on the Quick Snapper podcast. I think turnovers and penalties were the things that killed the Lions and kept and New Zealand just managed to smother possession, especially in that third quarter of the game. Any other comments you want to say about this game before we take a look forward to next week?
Not too much particularly. I think talking about the penalties and things like that, if it was a 15-on-15 man game, I think the All Blacks would have played quite differently in the way that they handled those penalties. I think we would have seen a few more kicks for corners and things like that. But the Lions really did gift the All Blacks into that game and let them stay in that game. Barrett, well, we've talked about it for a long time about Barrett not being that goal-kicking fly half, blah, blah, blah. He's proved us wrong up until about now, and like was mentioned earlier, if he did kick those goals, it probably would have been a different result. But, that's rugby. Conditions, you expect him to be the man who dominates around Westpac, around the Cake Tin, but, it was off night and the Lions defended well. You've got to give them credit for that as well. The All Blacks had a lot of time in control in their 22, like in their half as well. So, they defended well. They kept them out, and you got to give credit to that as well. The defence was pretty good on point.
Yeah, I mean, for 20 minutes, it was 89% action zones in the Lions' half. And they were, they did defend doggedly. They did give away a lot of penalties. And one of the things on our podcast has been talking about the Lions' penalty count and how vital that is, that they keep the penalty count down to being with a chance of winning games. Seems that's been blown right out of the water this week because they gave away a massive amount of penalties and still managed to win the game. But they're going to have to improve that for next week and improve their discipline. Otherwise, they're going to be in trouble again next week.
Well, actually, one of the things about this discipline is a lot of those penalties seem to be in, as you say, in the 22. Now, was this the Lions, again, taking another leaf out of the All Blacks book? The All Blacks do not like giving up tries. So you will see them deliberately giving up penalties in their own 22 and giving you the 3 points. And I think tonight maybe we saw a bit of that taken out of the All Blacks playbook and used by the Lions. I don't know why I've got the States on my mind tonight. There we go. So let's look forward to next week. Russ, why don't you kick? Any changes to the Lions team, or do you keep with that setup again?
I would keep with the setup again. I don't think you can move too far away from a winning side. And judging by how the Lions set up early doors and how they started the game, they kept, whilst not controlling it, they kept it close. They kept it under wraps. And the game plan for the Lions, as always, has to be keep it tight for as long as possible, try and keep the scoreboard ticking over and not let the All Blacks get away from them. So I think keeping the All Blacks under wraps and not allowing them to make those big gains will be big, but no changes for me.
Yeah, I don't think they'll see much changes from the Lions either. I think, like you mentioned, the start of the game, we've seen it all the Test series, especially the Lions start very, very well. They come out of blocks to better side and get a good start to the game. Really, the only changes you could possibly see is, I think, in the second row, and if they're going to stick with the Sexton and Farrell combination at 10 and 12, that's probably the only areas that you'd probably look at it. But the way the game went, you don't change a winning side, like you said. That's the big thing, and I think they'll just stick with it.
Yeah, a couple of comments in here that Sexton wasn't good enough for me. Without protection, he's exposed more than Farrell or bigger. So we'll have to see there. Tio has been playing so well in this series. It seems strange to not actually get him any game time at all during that game. So I'm not sure whether we'll see him come back in. And as you say, that second row, Courtney Lawes obviously played well. We've got Kruis, who we know is a class operator who's not in there, and I'm going to get Henderson and Henshaw mixed up again, but I think it's Henderson, isn't it, who's the second rower? They both start with H, and that just ruins me. I'm dyslexic; it's awful. Anyway, Henderson had an absolute blinder against the Canes until he got carded. So again, maybe we'll see something switched up there. I'm not sure.
The key thing is that there's no midweek game this week, so he's got an absolutely full squad, to pick from for the final test. Barring the ones that have gone home, obviously he's got maybe 30 odd players that he can choose from now. So he can go in whatever direction he wants, and if that is Henderson coming in on the bench and Lawes moving up, or Kruis coming back in, or bigger, or the world is his oyster this week, depending on how he wants to approach the game. He doesn't have to worry about any midweek stuff.
Yeah, but there was no one there who sort of put their hand up to say, I'm not playing well enough to be picked again, I think is what we're trying to say. So if we see changes, it's probably going to be shuffling on the bench rather than necessarily in the starting 15. So from the All Blacks team, obviously we're going to have a replacement for Sonny Bill because he is now going to be out for a number of weeks with his red card. So who else is that the only change we're going to see there, or would you see expect some other changes, Steve?
Well, it could go a number of ways. See, obviously you're going to get the change in the centres. Do they give Laumape his first test start? That's going to be the big question, to see Anton Lienert-Brown and Laumape together. They've gone with him confidence already. It would be a bit of a shame to back out. I think he got involved. He got a bit of a taste, and I think if they keep 15 men on the field, we'll see more of what he can offer. So I think after seeing that, I'll be comfortable seeing Anton Lienert-Brown and Nangala Laumape together next weekend. The back three were a bit dicey, I reckon, in this match. Israel Dagg, not his best game. He was a bit shaky on occasions. Really shouldered a lot of responsibility, I reckon, was the main reason for that. It was him that dealt with pretty much every high ball, kickoffs, box kicks from Farrell, Sexton, everyone. They all went to Dagg. He was covering a lot of ground, and he wasn't. It's hard to say it a bad game because he was doing so much work that he covered so much ground. He probably played pretty well, but doing so much work lent a lot to mistakes on his half as well. So Dagg, someone to share the work with Dagg would be good. Do we see a Damien McKenzie, you're saying, come into the mix, possibly Geordie Barrett's as well? It's a tough call. Deciding test match is a big call. Other than that, I think the pack will stay the same. We're going to see the same halves. It'll be just the centres. I think Lienert-Brown, Laumape, and Julian Savea possibly coming back. Ooh. Who knows? I don't think it's going to help the high ball thing, though. Question will be on weather is a big thing as well. If we've got a dry track, that could change things massively.
So, I mean, the way the Naholo went off, there's quite a high possibility that he won't be playing next week. So do you then put DMAC at fullback or Geordie Barrett and then bring Dagg onto the wing? Or, what do you do there? Or do you bring Surveyor in, like you say, and just make a straight one-for-one replacement? My one worry about bringing Laumape in is, does bringing Laumape in like that nullify Anton Lienert-Brown and the back three a little bit with regards to the running game? Only because I don't see him offloading as much. A bit like sort of Tio, yes, very, very good going forward, very good breaking the game line. But his offload game isn't as such that would give them the opportunity to get involved a bit more. I think he's still learning that extra dimension to his game.
Here's a left field call for you. Do the All Blacks call up Nehe Milner-Skudder?
Ooh.
Yeah, so that's a good one. So I'm just having a quick look at Laumape's his stats. So he had the ball, according to this, 4 times, and what he did with it was run 4 times. He didn't pass the ball once in this game. He ran 4 times for 23 meters, and that's what he does. Yeah, maybe it is a bit restricting putting him in there. It is a very inexperienced centre pairing if you put him in with Antoinette Brown. I guess the question is, how injured is Crotty? Because I don't know if he will come back into. I think if Crotty comes back from injury, then he will be playing. If otherwise, yeah, I think they've got to stick with Laumape because they do the constant selection, consistency of selection, constant selection. Jeez, that means clearly we need a 23. Number 23 to come onto the bench, which is maybe where we see Damian McKenzie or Julian Surveyor come in there. But that is with Julian Surveyor, he only covers one position. And you don't have a Ben Smith who can slot into the centres. So if you lose a centre, you're in trouble. Again, with McKenzie, he doesn't cover centres either. So I don't know if they'll go maybe call up for Katoa to fill that gap on the bench because they are out of centres in the squad from memory. I don't think anyone else. As you say, with Naholo, I think it's a good chance he's not going to play. So again, yeah, Geordie Barrett to fullback or Julian Surveyor comes in. I'd probably see. I don't think they will call it Milner-Skudder. As I say, it's straight into 23. It's not their style. They don't pick. I think we'll probably see Julian Surveyor come in. Rico to me had a very quiet game. I didn't hear his name in the first half of the game mentioned by the commentators, and I heard him a couple of times in the second half, but had a very quiet game. Looking at the stats, he passed the ball twice, ran 3 times for 21 meters. Which is a fair distance for 3 times, but they were kick returns from memory, which you expect them to have some meters there. Interestingly, interestingly from a statistician's point of view, the biggest runner was Dag with 50 meters on both sides. And when you consider that you can have some players hit 100 meters in a game, that's a very low highest. There was very little run meter made. There were very few clean breaks during this game, and also a lot of the kicks were very contestable as well. So those are the only 2 changes we see in that point of view. Where are you guys? What I will be at Eden Park, so follow me on Twitter for
don't boast.
for many videos for pre-game, halftime, and full-time videos, reports from the stands. For that, where are you guys going to be? Is it in the living room again for you, Russ?
Yeah, I'll be on my sofa in the back room, watching. Hopefully, Phil from the More Over podcast will join me again. We've been watching it together, so yeah, it's been great, and I don't want it to end. I really don't. I absolutely love it. I love the Lions, and yeah, I don't want it to end.
And Steve, where are you, on your sofa again?
I'll be on this comfortable chair again, watching it like I was today. It'll be great to go to the game. It'll be amazing. But isn't it good, though, how it's kind of set up like this? It's almost like watching State of Origin. It always goes 1-1, and then we have a big decider for the 3rd test. But no, that's great. It's great for rugby, great for the Lions after all this rubbish talk we've heard about them, people wanting to get rid of them. That's rubbish. Don't listen to that. So super, 1-1, bring it on.
Absolutely. I was looking at it thinking, if this is a draw, it still leaves the Test series in a balance. So at least when it was 21-all, I thought, I can live with a draw. Just let's just get it. Let's make this 3rd game exciting. That was the important thing for me. So guys, coming to the end of the show. So Russ, why don't you let people know where they can get hold of you?
I am the host of the @More podcast on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook. We are More Over Rugby Podcast. We've also got a signed Lions jersey to give away. So it's signed by people like Quinnell, by Greenwood, O'Driscoll, all of those guys. We're raising some money for some local charities that are close to our hearts and the More Over podcast.
For the New Zealand audience, Dan Carter's also signed it.
Yes, he has. Sir Dan Carter, as we like to call him. But yeah, he also signed it. So please check out the link on all of our social media where you can go. And the smallest donation will register you into the draw. And as soon as we reach our target, we'll be making that draw. So check us out on social media. And our podcast is recorded every Monday night and released on a Tuesday morning our time, so Tuesday evening New Zealand time.
And yeah, remember that is to get into that draw. It's a donation for charity, so it's all in a good cause.
Yes.
So, Steve, how can people get hold of you?
Before I go on about how people can get hold of me, I just read a comment saying that Rieko Ioane can also play centre. We forgot about that. That's a pretty big deal. That is a pretty big deal. So keep that in the back of your minds when picking your squad for the third test. To get hold of me, at Cornflakes Crib on Twitter, Cornflakes Crib on YouTube as well. You can catch me all there. Come join the crib. We always have some great banter going on during the matches and the weekend. Super Rugby coming back, of course. So plenty going on around Twitter and on the channel as well. So come check us out.
Someone just said, can Tipuric play 6? No, he can't. He's very much a 7. But O'Brien can play 6, so you could do that instead. So I am Paul, the guy behind Driving Maul. You're watching this on the Driving Maul channel, so please do subscribe. Give this the old thumbs up and share it with all your mates. We just do this for fun. It'd be great to reach a big audience. I'm also at Driving Maul on Twitter. As I say, that's where I'll be putting my videos up from Eden Park next weekend, and you can see me on Periscope there every day of the week. Finally, next Tuesday at 8 p.m. New Zealand time, 9 a.m. UK time, I'm going to be trying something new. We're going to be doing Hash Rugby Chat, which will be a live show on YouTube. We'll do a recording of it, and that'll be put out as a podcast. But also, we'll have 5 questions which will go out on Twitter, and those are the questions we'll be discussing on the show. So if you respond with Hash Rugby Chat on Twitter, you'll get your comments on the show as well. You'll see myself, Steve. We also have Will from Rugby Numbers down in Wellington, and we have Mike, the real Mike Pullman on Twitter, who is a rugby writer from Hamilton. So we've got 4 of the 5 New Zealand Super Rugby sides covered off. So do come join us for that. I'm really excited about it. It should be a great chat. Thank you very much for joining us. It was a wonderful game. The series is so well set up. I can't wait to the next weekend.
Lions!